Hello, friends, and welcome to the 360 Experience podcast. I'm your host, Tim Brahim, and today my conversation is going to be with a friend of mine by the name of Marc Bowie. Now, Marc has been an originator for well over a decade now out of Orange County, California. He works for Fairway Independent Mortgage. And Marc is a friend and a client who I've known for quite some time, and I've seen him really grow and evolve. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is a very inspiring story that I think will give a lot of hope and inspiration to you as the listener surrounding Marc's trepidation and fear around speaking in public and being on camera and putting himself out there. As I say that, I want to make sure that you understand that this is somebody who has over 75,000 followers on his Instagram account. So he has overcome that fear in a massive way. He's done some amazing work. He has a fascinating story and some amazing suggestions as to how to really get started with being a content creator, how to really know and understand how to build a base of followers and how to turn those followers into loans. Marc also has a tremendous interest in investing in real estate. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So it will be really fun for me to share Marc with you and for you to get to know him a little bit better. And before we go into the interview with Marc, I want to remind you to please subscribe to the 360 Experience on your favorite podcast channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, it would be really great if you could make a comment. If you're watching this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, a like would be really great. Those types of things really help the show because it helps me get more and more high quality guests for you and continue to bring them into this platform. I so appreciate, and my team so appreciates you listening to the show. Thank you for making it all possible because without listeners, we wouldn't be able to do this. Secondarily, I want to make sure that you check out the show notes to this episode because we have a link in there that can take you to some of the post-coaching debriefs from previous episodes. We want you to check that out. And without further ado, my conversation with Marc Bowie. What's up, Marc?
What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm good, man. Good morning. And it's great to be with you. I'm excited to just see where this goes, to have a great conversation with you and to, teach together and explore together and all of it. We always want to just get started with a little bit of a background so people can understand, how long you've been in the business for, and maybe you could talk about what your production numbers were in, say, 19 and 20 to give people a feel for that. I mean, 21 was a great year. 22 was a tougher year. 23 is off to a slower start. I mean, so let's kind of anchor into, what was normal for you pre, huge spike in interest rates. So everybody can get a little feel for that as well.
Yeah, man. So I've been lending since 1999. Got into the business doing 125 loans. So I'm excited to see debt consolidation loans come back here. 2019, I think my production was closer to like 55 million. 2020, 75. So I kind of float around there a little bit. I'm not a massive producer by any means, but I don't stress out too much either.
Yeah. Now, how many units does that represent? Like when you did 75 million, just give us perspective on that.
That's probably closer to 100.
200, did you say?
100.
100. Okay, so you were doing about roughly 9 deals a month in your better years. Is that right?
Yep.
But you also had originators that worked underneath you, correct? In your branch?
I have originators. I have right now I have 2, and then they're self-sourced. I got a couple of LOAs on my team, my immediate team.
Got it. Now, you say you're not a massive originator, but one of the areas that we're going to want to dive into here in a few minutes is social media marketing, because you've been doing a lot of that and learning and growing and developing and tweaking and adjusting. And I want to go into detail about that topic because my sense is, and I've told you this before, that when we have a nice drop in rates, which, we're recording this in May of 2023, I do believe that's forthcoming. When we do have a large drop in rates, I think you're going to be a huge beneficiary of that because you have a lot of lines out in the water that are with baited hooks, so to speak. Let's go there. Let's talk about the war chest of followers that you built up. How many followers do you have on Instagram? Let's start there.
Close to 75,000 followers right now.
And you started doing that, what, about a year and 3 months ago, if I recall, like January of 22, is that right?
Yep, you're right about that. I think my first post is December 30th of 21. So I threw one out, and then the beginning of 2022, I just ran super hard, stayed very, very consistent with that. But yeah, I started out with 400 followers on my IG page.
And then what other platforms are you on other than Instagram?
I have a TikTok account. I'm not super active there. We try to repurpose some content on TikTok, but like I'm not on it engaging the same way that I am on IG. And then I have a Facebook account too that's been there for years. I just use it to communicate with like some of the people that are super close. But my main focus is on Instagram.
Now, let me ask this question. So you've got 75,000 followers on Instagram. What are some of the things that you think you did that resulted in that number climbing so considerably? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you were in that neighborhood of roughly 75,000 followers by late summer of 2022, which is only about 8 months into doing the whole Instagram thing. I mean, you rose like a hockey stick. I remember one day you and I were on the phone and you had said to me, you're like, have you looked at, you're such a humble guy. So like the way you said it was really cool. You're like, I don't know, like, have you looked at my Instagram page lately? And I'm like, no, I haven't. And you go, you may want to look just to see. Like, you were so cool and humble about it. I looked and it was like 74,000. I was like, holy shit, what happened here? So tell us about how it exploded so quickly, man.
Yeah, going into social media, like I really wanted to drive value. I had one goal, right? My one goal was to get to the consumer first before real estate agents, before financial advisors. And I felt that if I can influence people through all the things that I've learned, from guys like you and from Leadership 360 and the people around me, I can really buy a brain space, which is one of the things that you teach, Tim. So it's just delivering value every single time, like sharing tips and tricks about home ownership, about different mortgage strategies. But I think the secret sauce for me is just being very consistent. I work with James, a social media coach, and we were just very diligent about making sure I post 4 times a week. And that was what I focused on. Like I didn't worry about 2 weeks down the road or a month down the road. I didn't even focus on how many followers I had. I didn't care about that. I just cared about delivering good value and being consistent.
Okay, so the consistency was key. I remember some of your earliest posts, if I remember correctly, were regarding building, like, what's it called, AUIs?
ADUs?
ADUs. That's
Yeah,
ADUs.
yeah.
Thank you. Boy, I really look like an idiot right now. So I remember that your first posts were about ADUs and home rehabilitation loans and things like that. And then from there, it really started to evolve. So tell us a little bit about the evolution of your content. Like, maybe you could take us back to the beginning. What was your original content intentions? We know that you wanted to be consistent, 4 posts a week, but creating content, as you and I have talked about, is an art form. And I want to get into that too in a minute, but let's look first at the evolution of the content, where it began, where you're at now with it, and where you think you're going.
Yeah, so before I recorded my first reel, Tim, what I did was I went on sites such as Answer the Public, Google search, just to figure out like what first-time home buyers were searching for. And if I can back up before that, I I identified like what my avatar was like, right? My avatar was somebody between the age of 30 to 45 years old, first time home buyer bucket, single, married, maybe they have one or two kids. And also like I wanted to go after people who wanted to build wealth through real estate because I'm into, rehabbing properties and stuff. So after I identified who my target audience was, I then tried to identify like what topics are they searching for. So a really cool website is called Answer the Public. You can go on there and type in like, for example, first time home buyer, and it'll give you all the questions that are being asked right now by first time home buyers. How much down payment do I need? Do I need to save up 20%? So I then drafted 8 different topics and then 8 or 10 different subtopics around each category. So for example, down payment is one topic, and then subtopic would be 3% conventional versus 3.5% FHA. So that's how I first built my library of topics. And then, I talk about like ADUs a lot. I talk about renovation loans a lot because I know that particular product. And I've actually have used that product personally to build ADUs, to renovate properties. So I'm pretty passionate about that. But it's funny, man, like the reel that really popped off to him was one where I did, the caption was, how much home can you afford with a $100,000 salary? Super simple. And back then rates were at 4% or something like that. So on a $100,000 salary in California, you can qualify for like $700,000 in purchase price. And I posted that up, and it just got a lot of steam. People disagreeing with me, people agreeing with me, applauding, but I got a lot of like negative comments from that post. And I think that was what propelled the page to so many followers.
So that's interesting. You stirred up some controversy unintentionally, it sounds like, which went viral. And then all of a sudden, the amount of followers you had exploded. So there's a lot of questions that I want to ask you. And you said a lot of things there that I want to take a deeper look at. So let's just first start with that particular topic. Why do you think that your lead in that you could buy a $700,000 house with $100,000 in income was so controversial? Were people saying that you were being reckless and advising people to overextend themselves, or?
Oh, 100%. I had that type of comment. People said stuff like, this guy doesn't even know what he's talking about. What about, he's not accounting for property taxes or homeowners insurance? What about maintenance on the property? If you listen to this guy, you're going to be house poor. He's a fraud. Don't listen to a guy on social media dishing out financial advice wearing a baseball cap. Like, you name it. Every negative comment that you can think of, man, it poured in. And it happened like over a very short period of time too. So I posted that reel. It did fine. It was normal. I got some thumbs up and some positive comments. And then a couple weeks later, that reel went viral. And then the barrage of like comments started to pour in. Some, like the majority of them negative, right? And you know me, man, like I don't like attention. I don't like, especially like negative attention too. And it really messed with me. I started questioning, like, man, did I do my math right? Is it really $700,000? So I went back to look at the mortgage coach TCA that I built out. Like, yep, it's 45% DTI. You can qualify for this much house. And I had a lot of limiting beliefs around like whether or not I was doing the right thing. I even told my social media guy, I'm like, you got to take this reel down. Like, I cannot deal with this emotionally right now because I was questioning whether or not I was a good originator and dishing out good advice to people.
Wow, what a trippy story. So just to give a little background that I'll have you corroborate, but I mean, it's quite amazing to me how active you are on social media and how good you are now on camera. I mean, your reels are outstanding. Uh, and me knowing you so well and knowing how introverted you used to be, although I think that you're growing in that area, but how petrified, in fact, you have been to get up in front of your peers in the Leadership 360 family and speak in a public way, like teach, provide suggestions, even get up and share or ask questions. It's a very intimidating thing for you. And I think that it's so inspiring that you have have leaned into that fear a lot. And then yet at the same time, in hearing that story, I was sitting here listening because I didn't quite know the depth of it. I knew that it went viral. I knew that it was controversial, but I had never really connected the dots that must have been an incredibly difficult period of time for you because like you're definitely somebody who is a little bit gun shy about having negative publicity, any kind of publicity, period, but especially negative publicity. I mean, I think we all are, but like I bet you kind of wanted to crawl into a hole there for a short period of time, huh?
Oh, 100%. That was talk to if you talk to my social media team, like that was the one of the worst weekends I have had in like years, man. I mean, it was just I just wanted to like unplug, delete that reel, start fresh. I did not want any of that, and it just made me, I don't know, sick to my stomach for lack of a better phrase. But it was not a good feeling. And you're right, I don't like attention, especially like negative attention. So it was pretty heavy on me.
I mean,
But
I think that, the people that listen to this episode of the show are going to be really surprised when they go check out your Instagram feed if they've not looked at it before to see somebody on camera that actually seems incredibly comfortable in your skin. And I really want to reflect that to you because I think that um, it may not be your internal experience sometimes, but you're actually naturally very good at it. But I think, well, let me rephrase that. I think you've learned to be good at it. I mean, I think it's come from practice. And I think that that's something that is really inspiring to people because there are so many people that are afraid to be on camera. And, as we were talking about in Austin, a couple of weeks ago at the Masters Retreat, like I think there's this general perception out there that like these gifted speakers like a Tony Robbins or a Dr. Joe Dispenza or a Barry Habib or whoever, Ryan Grant, that they're just naturally born that way. And it's not that, man. I mean, it's about practicing. It's about really honing your craft and really understanding the importance of the little intricacies that make you successful as a presenter. And one of the things that I've been really thinking a lot about, and I haven't shared this with you. I want you to certainly comment on this and any of what I just said is it's become very clear to me that a major part of a loan originator's job description in this environment that we're in right now and probably indefinitely into the future because of the direction that technology has gone in is that you are a content creator. Like if you want to be good as an originator, which requires marketing yourself, you need to be a great content creator. And when you really look at it from that lens of being a content creator, now what we're talking about is the art of communication. We're talking about the art of structuring a presentation. We're talking about body language, tonality, pausing at the right times, voice inflection, all of these types of nuances that are so incredibly important to influencing people and standing out and developing a brand. So how do you feel about the importance that an originator needs to be a content creator right now?
I think it's crucial. I think you hit the nail right on the head, Tim, because we are our brand, right? And right now is probably one of the best times, in my opinion, to promote our brand for free. If you look back 10 years ago or even 20 years ago, if you want to have a 60-second commercial, you're paying a shitload of money to get it produced. You're paying a lot of money to get it aired, right? You're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars each and tens of thousands of dollars each month, if not 100, just to get a commercial out there. It can be you or you can hire somebody, but now you have the opportunity to create your own commercial for free. So I think originators that really understand this and are taking advantage of this are going to have a huge step up over the competition. And I think that an originator that is not um, kind of will get muted a little bit. So this morning I was talking to a real estate agent friend of mine. He's pretty active on social media too. His name is Nick, and we have a mutual friend slash realtor who's also a good producer, Johnny, who is not active on social media. And we were talking about Johnny. I'm like, hey man, how's Johnny doing? Like, is he still doing deals? You know, Nick laughed a little bit and goes, yeah, man, Johnny does a lot of deals. You can't tell because he's not on social media where all the eyes are at right now.
Well, I want to go back before I forget. I want to benchmark that because I want to talk about like how does it translate to business? Because I think that's a very important distinction. There are a lot of people that you and I know that aren't active on social media that are doing 30 deals a month right now. So there's something to be said about that. But before we do, I just want to anchor back to something we were talking about a little while ago. So you're going through this shitty weekend, and it's like, man, like I want to crawl into a hole and please take this down. And what did I get myself into? Then there must have been some transition point, right? Where you went, where the paradigm shifted and you went, oh, actually, this is good that I got this controversy out there because it's really helping me. Tell us about that and what awarenesses you had around that.
Yeah. Soci actually really helped me out a lot. He goes, bro, um, all the negative comments that you're getting right now are most likely coming from people who don't even understand mortgages, which is true. And they're probably coming from people who can't even qualify for a mortgage loan. Maybe he painted a picture for me, like maybe they're living with their parents in the Mid East, or I'm sorry, the Midwest, and they're barely trying to hold a job together. Don't let that type of individual like just ruin your day or take you down or like just take away from what you're doing on social media, which is delivering value and teaching the community about home ownership. So I have Soci to thank for that. He was tremendous.
Yeah, I think his ability to help you reframe that was really important. I was listening a few months ago. I was walking on the beach in Costa Rica at Prieta, you know that beach well, just doing a beach walk, and I was listening to Joe Rogan and Lex Friedman. Joe was a guest on Lex's show, and Lex was asking him about the whole issue of like ivermectin and all the controversy that came Joe's way when he was speaking out. And I want to be clear, I'm not here to have a personal view on the vaccine or any of that kind of stuff. I have my own beliefs and I'm kind of neutral with all of it, I think at this point. But when he was, out there and really promoting some of these doctors that were on his show that were controversial and promoting ivermectin, he got crushed, man. I mean, CNN and many of the major news outlets, MSNBC, et cetera. I mean, they're having, huge, articles on a daily basis, discrediting him, on a huge national level, way bigger than anything that you or I have ever experienced. And Lex was asking him, like, how did you deal with that? And one of the things that he said was that he just really had to learn how to tune it out and how to stop looking at it. And that it was a really big lesson for him in having some mental discipline and some emotional maturity around the subject matter of, what am I going to allow in the way of my intake into my consciousness that is healthy for me and not healthy for me. And he doubled down on his workouts. I actually think that what he said was you start microdosing mushrooms too as a means of coping with it. Hey, whatever it takes,
Yeah.
I mean, but he utilized certain strategies like working out, getting his endorphins going, et cetera. Ice baths was another thing to really bring him into the present moment. Because man, left to your own devices, you start reading all that kind of stuff. You can go down some rabbit holes that can be incredibly unhealthy. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you had Soci as your bro to help you through that. And I think you probably learned a lot from that experience too, right? I mean, is there any takeaways that you think you had from going through that?
Yeah, man. I've learned a ton. First of all, negative press, negative comment is good press, right? Good, it's good for the page. And at the end of the day, like I've learned how to better not let other people's comments, views on me impact me negatively. I've learned how to, like what you said, how to just kind of separate myself from all of that and just focus on what I need to do. Like there's going to be people that I gel with. There's going to be people in the community that like what I like my videos, like how I show up. And there are going to be people that don't. One of the best uh, things that I've heard is your vibe will attract your tribe. So
Yeah, and it takes a lot of bravery to put yourself out there in the way that you have. I mean, it's never lost on me. I mean, people love to take shots out of their own insecurities. And, it goes back to the Eleanor Roosevelt quote from, 100 years ago almost now, which is that other people's opinion of you is none of your business. The more that you worry about what everybody else says about you, the more that you're going to suffer. And, really sitting with you knowing your truth, that you're doing the best you can and you're being brave and you're putting out content, you're trying to help people and you're trying to grow your brand and, grow your business to be able to provide for your family. I mean, those are the truths of all of it. You didn't have any nefarious intentions behind the videos that you created. So I want to get into the content of the videos a little bit more and like some of the tricks that you've learned so we can really do some teaching here. But before we do, let's just take a look at, have you started to see any results that you can associate with loans? Because I think that's an important inquiry that a lot of people have, which is, yeah, but is he or she spending so much time behind the camera that they're not actually getting paid to do loans because they're not doing that many loans? And I do believe that there needs to be a balance there. I mean, I still think it's a contact sport and that there are a lot of people who spend all their time behind the camera and as a result, it's hurting them. What are your thoughts on that?
for those that are doing this or about to go on social media, like just know that it's a long game. You're not going to get immediate results within I would say the first 6 months. Like you got to go past that 6 months before you actually start to see people reach out, asking to speak with you, leads come through, etc. So I have closed 5 loans directly from social media. I have 1.8 million in purchases in the active pipeline now, and 13 pre-approvals.
So those are 3 separate categories. You have 5 plus you have 1.8 million currently in process, plus you have a bunch of pre-approvals looking for property.
Right.
That's actually going to pay off. Now, what I've told you before, and I really believe this, is like I said, wait till rates drop. And then I think that, your message is going to start to be about how to save people money. And then that's when I think your phone is going to ring a lot more. Your activity is going to spike a lot more. There's also the ancillary benefit too, that, there are things that we can be doing in our marketing that we can't directly tie to our success, but probably have additional benefits that we're not seeing. So realtors seeing you as an example, or, a borrower who ends up getting referred to you by a real estate agent, but they also have their own, real estate agent, their own loan officer, but because they've seen your social media, that tips them over the edge and has them go with you. I mean, there's these kind of hidden benefits that we don't see as well.
The hidden benefits are, in my opinion, like even better than direct to consumers. Real estate agents that we work with, Tim, have been reaching out, reconnecting with me, reconnecting with the team. I mean, they asked me out to lunch, which is kind of cool, right? And you're 100% right. The leads that are referred to our team by our real estate partners, there's a higher conversion because they're watching me on social media, like they're following the content, they're learning, and I'm being viewed as now as an educator in the mortgage space from a consumer standpoint. So when I'm up against like Rocket Mortgage or another loan competitor, there's added weight. There's definitely a hidden benefit there. think you said that perfectly.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say, I had never even thought of this, but this totally makes sense. So you get referrals from real estate agents or financial planners or accountants or divorce attorneys or whoever, but at that point of sale, when you have not yet secured the relationship, if you're directing them to your IG page and they're seeing your credibility as a teacher and all of your followers and all your views, that's almost, I mean, that's something that most definitely is a substantial separator from any competition that you might have, I would imagine.
Oh, 100%. It's kind of like having a 5-star Yelp review on steroids, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Now, so the realtors that are asking you to go to lunch, are a lot of them wanting to pick your brain on how to get their social media accounts more successful?
Yep. Yeah. That's where it first started. It was all about like, hey, can you show me what you're doing on social media or show me how to do it? And I would just lay out my playbook, because you and I know that most people probably won't implement. And then now because they're following me on social media, and I talk a lot about like mortgage strategies. I take some of the things I've learned from Barry Habib and you and a lot of really smart people, and I share that on social media. So they view me as like an industry expert now. And they'll call me and like, hey, what do you think about rates? What do you think about this recession that we're heading into? What do you think? Can you show me how to like forecast interest rates or read the bond market charts? So it's been really cool, man. Like I feel like I put myself into a different platform now with my real estate partners. Um, a platform that like we're equals, or actually like they're coming to me for advice. It's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, that must feel great. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, I used to have that too, because I used to do those mastermind groups, and I remember the day when this one like huge producer in the San Fernando Valley, her name is Stephanie Vitaco. I remember she called me one day and was like, "Hey, can I get together with you for a cup of coffee and pick your brain on, how to manage my personal assistant more effectively?" And I remember like just that felt so good to actually have a real estate agent. That was the first of many times, but it was the first time that a huge producer wanted my time because they saw me as a valuable resource. I mean, that's absolutely the position that you want to be in. So let's organize this in a specific way. I'll give you a couple of things that I want to talk about and drill down on, and you can tell me what order you want to take it in. So one of them is the algorithm, and what it takes to get your views up and all of that. Another one is the visual medium, like how you want to cut up your reels and have them grab people, the hook and all that kind of stuff. And then the third is how you decide what content to create, organize it, and batch it out. So any of those three, I want to talk about all of them, but which one do you want to take first?
Uh, yeah. So let's do content.
Great, great. It's the only topic of the three that I actually have some familiarity with, so that's
All
perfect.
right.
We'll start there. So are you cutting all your reels on one day for the whole week? Are you cutting them on 2 days for the whole month? Let's start there. Like when do you record all these, and you're all these different locations, and you have like a dynamic visual component to it. Um, when are you doing it, and how are you deciding? Because I think this is the part that is really difficult for most originators is I don't know what to talk about, right? So then
Right.
the thing that they're talking about isn't very exciting. I mean, let's be honest about it. I don't mean this to offend anyone, but I mean, I think you'll agree 95% of the stuff that's out there is hard, it's painful to watch. Like I
Yeah.
watch some of the stuff that's created, I'm like, oh geez, man, like this is not good. And a lot of it's because they don't have anything exciting to talk about. So I think it starts with really determining the content. How do you go about doing that?
So I am I am a student throughout the week, Tim. And because I'm creating content now, like I'm just hyper aware of like if I read a good article, if I see a good post, if MBS Highway, there's a great morning update. Like I'm constantly taking notes and I'm constantly saving all of these articles into an Outlook folder. And typically what I do is Saturday morning is like my content writing time. I'll wake up early before the rest of the family is awake, and I'll spend an hour or two just going through the articles and then writing content. And the formula is pretty simple. You start out with a hook, right? And a hook is something that will grab the viewer's attention. And typically the hook is also the punchline. So for example, if I'm going to be writing about why 20%, why 5% down is better than 20% down, and my punchline is it's better because it can get you into home ownership faster so that you can start building wealth faster and not miss that appreciation train, because it takes the average American 6.5 years to save up 20%, right? That's your natural story. But with social media, short-term content video, you gotta like give that punchline first. So I would say something along the lines of, here's how you can create wealth in less than 6.5 years, or here's how you can create wealth in 1 year as opposed to 6.5 years, right? A lot of people don't know. And then I follow up with, like, Soci likes to call it the FOMO, like create that fear of missing out, create that fear where it makes the viewer want to listen or watch the rest of the reel. Many people don't know this. And if you do, you're going to make yourself a ton of money, or, you know, I'm free balling right now. So that's a hook, that's a FOMO, and then you get into describing what it is that you're talking about. The reason why I say so is because it takes the average American 6.5 years to save at 20%, blah, blah, blah. If you do this, this, and this, you'll have this, this, and this. Follow me for more content, or follow me for more mortgage advice. Okay, but that hook is terribly important.
Yeah. So what I heard you say, to summarize, is the hook needs to give the, you know, it's the reason. It has to be quick and at the top because it's what causes them to stop and continue to watch. Then you maybe want to create some fear of missing out, or, like I like to refer to it as pain. Like if you don't take action, this is the negative consequence associated with it. And then, like, the formula for me has always been, and this was taught to me, you know, 30 years ago almost now, by Bill Hillestad: identify the pain, amplify the pain, cure the pain. Or what I used to say is identify, amplify, be the aspirin that makes the pain go away. So translation, hook is the thing that grabs them, that identifies the pain, and then maybe you create the fear of missing out in the middle, which is the amplification of that pain, and then the resolution of that pain, which is what you're offering, that they can get more of, is the way that you end it. Is that an accurate depiction of the formula?
Yep, 100%. Okay.
So one of the things that I love that you shared was, because I think we talked about this in San Miguel, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe even before that, it may have been in Santa Cruz, but I know at one of the retreats we talked about, you're gathering data all the time. And I really want everybody to understand how this lines up with what I said earlier. Your job is to be a content creator. And if your job is to be a content creator, then it starts with you being a content gatherer. And that gathering of content is a way of thinking and a way of being. So you're no longer going through the world with blinders on as it relates to potential content that is available to create. You're actually listening and looking from that perspective all the time. And you have to have an idea capturing mechanism that's nice and organized for you. And it could be, you know, your notes feature on your phone, or what I use, which is Todoist, or in your case, Outlook, but you have to put it into a folder. So you see an article, oh, this is good content. You got to put that in your folder quickly. You have a thought. This goes back to the David Allen conversation, you know, and all these different, you know, stimuluses that come into your various inboxes, your email, your text, you know, your Instagram account, your brain. You have to have a mechanism to take that information, those ideas, and put them into a consolidated place. And then what I heard you say, which I think the really important part, is that you have a disciplined component to that, which is every Saturday morning, you sit down and you go through that folder and you say, okay, what's the content that I've gathered over the course of the last week? And what am I going to deploy in my short form format on my Instagram account? It's absolutely no different than what I did for years when I created Loan Toolbox. It's absolutely no different than what I do when I create my business and life tips. I mean, lots of times, as you can imagine, when we're on retreat and we're masterminding in the L360 family and just it starts going, it just starts to take off and all these amazing ideas are flowing. I just start getting these downloads of ideas that just start hitting me like, when we were talking about debt consolidation in Austin, I mean, that's when you see me grab my phone. I don't know if you ever noticed, and I type really fast because I'm putting that note into my to-doist, do a video on the importance of debt consolidation right now and how you got to be sensitive to the fact that people are ashamed of the fact that they have so much debt. I mean, these little ideas. So, I mean, you and I are doing it in a very, very similar way, which is we're on the lookout for content, we're capturing it, and then we have a mechanism for organizing it and then ultimately deploying it. What are the common denominators of top originators in the mortgage business? They're well scripted. They have a system for marketing themselves that generates leads. They manage an effective database and they have strong referral partner relationships. The other common denominator of many great originators is that they have a business and life plan, a roadmap, a guide for them to achieve success, and they have an ally, a coach, who assists them in the successful implementation of that plan. Performance Experts Performance Accelerator private one-on-one, one-year coaching program is now accepting applications. This is my company, and these are my certified coaches that specialize in the mortgage business. Go to www.mortgagecoachingnow.com and click on Get a Coach, or go to the show notes and click on the link that's provided in this episode. Now let's get back to the show. So, what day of the week do you create content on, and how many reels do you create in a given day?
I usually shoot once a week. That's one thing I didn't have I've never had a very consistent schedule around, but I usually shoot once a week, and I'll try to fit it within my schedule and also my videographer schedule. So now I shoot once every other week, and I try to cram in at least 8 reels per session. Like I shot yesterday, for example, I went for like 3.5 hours of shooting like a ton of content. Because I don't want to do it every single week now. I'll just bring like a stack of different shirts with me. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And my wardrobe change can be like Marc with his hair down, and then Marc with a baseball cap, Marc with his hair tied up in a man bun. So, yeah, it's I gotta consolidate, man.
Yeah, that's another great tip that I don't want to scoot past. So. And I think I shared this with you a long time ago. I don't remember, but like content creation in my mind is about momentum. So if you're going to try to put out one reel a week, let's say, and you're going to then every single week have to discipline the time to create that one reel, I don't think you're really giving yourself an opportunity to build momentum and to get into a rhythm and to get good at it. So when I create content, I do it in batches. So like if I'm going to create, a bunch of, business and life tips, I'm going to bang out 8 or 9 of them in one day because I get into a groove, I get into my cave, I get into my mojo, and I start flowing, and it comes out so much easier. If I have all these pattern interrupts throughout my day or throughout my week, it's like one here, one there, one here, one there. It's not the same in the way of effectiveness, and life comes at you, and things are going to come up that you didn't expect, and then the next thing you know, it's like, oh shoot, I don't have any content for this week because I didn't create any. So getting in front of it and putting a bunch of them in the can, so to speak, in a library, and then deploying them is a great strategy that I definitely hope that everybody's really taking a note on that. So when you create these so like in the reels, your reels are cut up into little tiny bite-sized chunks, like 5 seconds here, 3 seconds there, and they're cut. Do you record it all the content in one fluid motion, or are you going a sentence, stop, and then change the angle, another sentence, stop, and then they edit it all together?
It'll be the latter, line by line. Yep.
And you know what?
One sentence at a time.
And I found that's so much easier too. It takes so much 100%. Of the pressure. It takes so much of the pressure off. Anybody can remember a sentence or two, right? I mean, it's just like, all right, go, stop. Okay. Regroup, study your notes again, go, stop. And then it gets all chopped up and edited into one streaming 30 seconds. Awesome. That's great to know. I've always wondered that. So let's go to the next topic, which is the visual medium. What are some of the things that you think are very important for people to understand as it relates to what makes good video?
Aesthetically, I think the backdrop needs to be interesting for people. Um, you have to have good audio coming from a guy that's in a sounds like I'm in a bathroom right now.
I'm waiting for the toilet to flush, dude.
You have to have great lighting, right? You got to make
Yeah.
sure your face is lit up, and the video quality needs to be like good. And you don't have to get fancy. I mean, I've shot 90% of my content using an iPhone and a wireless Bluetooth mic. Um, it's but you need those three things. You have to have a very interesting background or an interesting background. So, funny story. You know how a lot of my videos, I'm out and about doing something.
Mhm.
Well, we stumbled across that strategy because my background wasn't very interesting at home. It was during the pandemic. Like I had a painting on the wall, like I do now, and that was it. Like I had some lights, and our views were just not there. And I was talking to James about this, and like, okay, let's have you go do something. Okay, we need a videographer. Maybe ask Kimberly to help you record. That wasn't going to happen, by the way. So
She's got other things to do.
yeah, exactly. But go get some coffee. Go do this. Wash your car. Make it do like we ran what's called a parallel story, meaning like I'm talking about home ownership while you're trying to figure out what I'm gonna do next. And it just engaged the audience to continue to watch the entire reel because they're like, okay, is he getting a frappuccino? Is he going to clean all four wheels of his car? So that's a really good strategy if you have like somebody to help you record. Highly recommend it.
Let me ask you about that. So how does, and by the way, I like that picture that you have of Chong behind you.
Yeah, that's when he was 21.
Exactly. We love you, Chonger, most of the time. So the strategy of so you go out. I want to go out in the field with you for a minute. So I've seen the one where you were washing a car. I've seen you go get a frappuccino. So I totally know what you're talking about. So tell us what that looks like. So you're like, you get there and you have one person that has an iPhone in their hand and you have the Bluetooth wireless and that's it. And then they're just following you around. Is that all it takes? Or is there something more sophisticated than that?
Pretty much. Yeah. They're following me around with an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to say, like, if you're going to go for that strategy, I think it's best to record with an iPhone or a cell phone. You don't want to walk in with like a big camera, right? Into like a Starbucks or something like that. People will stop you for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So the background and you being in motion, you have found really draw people in because it creates this component of wonder where this is going, wonder what he's going to do next, et cetera.
Right.
And the name of the game. So it's interesting because one would think, oh, well, but then that's distracting from the content. If they're worried about, is he getting whipped cream on his Frappuccino? That's, not going to have them taking in the content. But I suppose then that the name of the game is to just keep them watching, because if they watch in their entirety, that's what gets things to go more viral. Or is that what's the strategy behind that?
Exactly. So Instagram is constantly changing their algorithm, but one thing that's been pretty consistent is if they identify that your reel is being watched all the way through the end, it's telling Instagram that, oh, that's a good reel. We should post it out for more people to see. Right. And if it's being watched like multiple times, oh, that's another good reason why we should push this reel out for more people to see. So it's just a couple of the algorithm staples that we try to follow. IG is constantly just changing what they deem as important, by the way. So I'm not an algorithm expert, but I do know that those two things will help push your reels out to more viewers.
Yeah, I was talking to Renee Rodriguez yesterday about this topic, and he knows a lot more, way more than I do for sure about the subject matter of social media marketing and all that. I actually don't know anything about it. I mean, very little at the end of the day compared to you or to him. And one of the things that he was sharing with me is that a lot, like let's just say I post a reel from this episode with you onto my Instagram account. The majority of the people that actually get that reel are not the people that follow me. Is that accurate?
Correct.
That's so odd. Like what? I couldn't believe that when he told me that. Cause I sometimes I'll look and I'll be like, wow, I didn't get very many views. And I thought that that was a good reel, but that's because it's not going out to my network in most cases. Tell us more about that. Cause I never knew that.
Yeah, so reels are for your network to see, but they also primarily go out to outside of the network. So people that are not following you, because the idea is for your reels to gain you like different eyes, right? And that's how you can grow your account, by posting reels, because strangers are seeing your stuff. And if they like what they're seeing, they'll follow or click on your page. And if they like more, they'll follow. Stories and posts, like if I post an image or if I do a story that disappears after 24 hours, only my followers can see them. So Reels is for you to grab new set of eyeballs. Stories are for you to engage with your community that's following you. That's why like I'm doing stories now. I'm doing like 6-7 stories a day, because I'm giving to the community and I'm giving them an opportunity to like see behind the curtains, if you will.
When you say you're doing 6 or 7 stories a day, that sounds very labor intensive. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it does sound labor intensive, but it's really not. Like, for example, if I'm going to the gym, I'm recording myself while I'm in the car driving to the gym, talking about like, man, it was a challenge to get out of bed this morning, but I'm finally here at the gym. I'm gonna work out for 30 minutes. See you guys later. Hey, I'm cooking. I can post a picture of like me cooking breakfast for the kids, and that's a story. So they're very quick. They're not rehearsed. You're not editing them, right? You're just giving bits and pieces of your life, whether it's personal or business, to your community.
Got it. Got it. What about clips and YouTube? Are you doing anything with that at this time?
No, I'm not, man. That's YouTube is where I want to be next. I I'm confident that YouTube is going to be the main driver of leads for real estate agents, for mortgage people that are creating content. Because on YouTube, like if you're going on YouTube, you have the intent to learn, right? So it's okay for you to, you're going to be more okay with spending like 30 minutes watching a video as opposed to 60 seconds, because you're trying to learn information.
Yeah, that's like, okay, so I'm going to get super archaic here, but when I get back to the very beginning of my career, and I did almost every type of consumer direct marketing you could think of, we used to have a major telemarketing operation, and I used to do a lot of direct mail. And in the direct mail, there would be a quick application at the bottom, and you'd put it on your fax machine and you'd fax it into us, which would just, have like, name, address, phone number, what's your current loan amount, what's your current rate, and what's the value of your property. What was very clear to me, and it speaks to what you're talking about here, is that there was a dramatic difference in my conversion ratio with a direct mail piece versus a telemarketing lead. Now, I'm not saying that I got more leads, because I didn't. We got more leads from telemarketing. My conversion ratio on the leads, meaning the percentage of the leads that I actually converted to deals, was much higher on the direct mail. And the reason was because the person was then expressing to us, we have a need. They were the one who were taking action to reach back out to us with their quick application after they received the direct mail piece, versus a telemarketer is like invading your space. You were at home eating dinner, and then all of a sudden somebody calls you. Those people have their guard up way higher. And there was it was just a whole different dynamic. Like when I would follow up on a direct mail piece lead, they were very receptive to talking to me. So to your point with YouTube, people go to YouTube to learn, as you said, which is why there's longer form content on there. which would lead me to believe that this formula probably plays out the same way with YouTube versus, TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah, 100%. Um, and as you were talking about like direct mail, I couldn't help but think what you and I are doing on social media right now is a form of direct mail, right? We're throwing it out there. They choose to consume the content if they want to. Like they're choosing to open your mail if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And if the messaging resonates with them, maybe they save the video or the reel, maybe they save the mail piece, and then they're going to reach out later. So I don't know, just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that studio work that you guys did in Austin is so good, man. I sent you guys that text last week, with you and Michael and Holly and Jay. Although it's really interesting, I gave Jay shit about this last week when I was with him in Minnesota. I'm like, dude, how come you're not in any of them? Like, it's like all the ones that I've seen don't have Jay in it. I was like, you weren't really there, were you? He's like, it was my idea. But I think that it's a really, really great strategy. What could be really cool. So what you guys did was you rented a recording studio when you were in Austin before the retreat started, and the four of you sat around, and I think Patricia was there too. So the five of you sat around and just kind of shot the shit and talked about various things and then cut it up into to reels. It would be really interesting to have a similar studio setup, and for you guys to just be talking about debt consolidation right now. Because I do believe, like in my heart of hearts, bro, that's where there's deals right now. Like really big time, there are deals. And what if you cut that up and then, you know, use those videos in various forms? So I'm even thinking kind of swiping and adapting a Pete Metz strategy here for a minute of taking like a cut up of that conversation that's like really hard hitting, and how people are swimming in credit card and revolving debt right now, and that it's not about rate, it's about payment and cash flow, and really shifting the focus away from rate because so many people are fixated on their 3.25% when they're being choked by their revolving debt. And what if you put out a direct mail piece that had a QR code that just had a grab them, like, do you need cash flow relief right now? We're finding that a lot of our clients do, because of how much the Fed has increased interest rates. Scan this QR code, and then the QR code is this like tight 3-minute video that talks about it and establishes your credibility. I don't know, it's theoretical that would work, but something tells me that it could be very effective. You have any thoughts on that?
That's freaking brilliant. That's my thought. Yeah. I haven't thought about it, but it's definitely something that I will see if I can put together. I love the QR code idea on the mail piece.
Well,
you still got it, Tim.
So here's what I'm thinking. Okay, let's just play with this for a minute. So let's just take your database. Let's say you've got 2,000 people in your database and you want to get to them really quick. Now, obviously, one way to do it is you could voice broadcast them. Another way that you could do it is you could send out a mass email to them. But let's be realistic about it. From an email perspective, I mean, or a text perspective, which would be another medium, people are just used to getting bombed with all that stuff, and it can be quite invasive. But what if you just voice broadcasted everybody, which costs virtually nothing, and said, hey, I'm sending you a small postcard in the mail that I think is really important. I'm finding that a lot of people right now are really needing my help because their payments have gone up so dramatically because of all the stuff the Fed's been doing. And I'm sending you a postcard in the mail that I want you to take a quick peek at. Just scan the QR code, and a video is going to pop up that explains it to you. I think you get a lot more open rates, for lack of a better term, if you do that. Maybe then again, as I say that, maybe it's the voice broadcast followed by an email, which is certainly less expensive. I don't know. You'd have to test it out. But I do think that putting together a video like that that's tightly edited and high value that substantiates why people need help right now, and if they fall into that category to contact you, could yield a decent amount of refis.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna reach out to the guys from our L360 family to see who wants in on this. It'd be great.
I would love to see you guys do that. I loved watching the video that you guys created. I want to check in with myself here for a second on the subject matter of social media marketing. Oh yeah, I want to talk about long form, and then I want to talk about your other passion, which is watching Chong play the guitar. No, actually, I want to talk about your other passion. Everybody's listening, going, "Who the Who the fuck is
Who's
Chung?
Chong? Chong's going to be famous.
Yes,
Chong's
correct.
IG account's going to blow up here after this podcast airs.
Exactly, exactly. No, I want to talk about your other passion, which is, fixing and flipping homes, in a moment. But before we do, I had this conversation with, my son Trey, and he and I were talking a couple of months ago. I was like, isn't it interesting that everybody's doing short form, super short form, like, just these 30-second, and the whole concept is around people's attention spans are very short. People getting bombarded with so much information that you got to grab their attention quickly. And yet, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you know, I'll name a couple, but there's many. The long form podcasts are some of the most successful ones. Joe Rogan being number one by a lot. In fact, he's the most influential person in the entire United States in media by a lot. It's not even close. Andrew Huberman's podcast, The Huberman Lab, is incredibly successful. Another long form. By long form, I mean, 2-3 hour interviews. I actually had Carl White recently tell me that he's like, I really want to encourage you to not be doing, your podcast so long, 20 to 30 minutes maximum. And I'm like, man, I don't personally feel like that there's a lot of great value that can be taught, especially if I have somebody interesting on like you right now. Like, I mean, imagine us trying to cram value of this topic of social media marketing into a 20-minute podcast. I don't know. I feel, bro, like that the whole concept of it being short form is it's almost like a crutch. Like, I don't have anything really that valuable to offer, so I'm just going to make it short. I feel like people will listen if it's really valuable. Like, if you really are creating, and I hope people feel that way about this show, but I mean, I feel like you'll invest the hour and a half. I certainly will into listening to a podcast if I feel like it's engaging, it's entertaining, and I'm getting great value from it. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that, and if you've thought about kind of extending out into a longer format in some capacity.
Yeah, well, Tim, first and foremost, like I love your podcast. I will make it a point to like listen to them during my workout, during my drive. I mean, you bring a ton of value to
Thank you.
not only guys like me in the mortgage space, but everybody around us too. I mean, you don't have to be a mortgage professional to get value of the things that you teach and the things that your guests to the podcast bring to the table and they share. So thank you for doing that, man. Um, in my opinion, short form content is for entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Long form content is to learn, is for teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have like followers up on my IG page, but all of my content, all of my reels are less than 60 seconds or up to 60 seconds. I'm giving them bits and pieces, right? And you help me segue into like the thing I want to do next, which is to have a legitimate YouTube channel to create long form content, to really like sit down and show people how do you save for your first house, right? Why is it that Marc always talks about 5% is better than 20%? Why does he believe that? Here's the reason why. Let me break it down for you guys. But long form is where you can really teach people. So I think you're on the right path. I don't, when I'm on YouTube with the intent to learn, bro, like I don't really focus on like the time frame of that video clip so much. If I see it being a 5-minute video, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, that guy is probably not going to be teaching me a whole lot. Let me watch this 30-minute clip. Let me watch this 45-minute clip.
Yeah. Yes. That's okay. So thanks for validating what I've been feeling. That last part was really important for me to hear, that you see it that way too, because I really respect, you've created a ton of content in the last 18 months and you study it. So yeah, like 4 minutes, it's almost like you either go big or go home. Like either it's super short or it's really long, because the perception is if it's long and people are listening to, but I do have people all the time, bro, say to me, how do you listen to a 3-hour podcast? I get that a lot. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. I'm like, well, first of all, I only make the time for it because I actually find it to be really valuable and entertaining, you know. Number two is that I don't necessarily listen to a Joe Rogan podcast all in one day. I mean, they're like 3.5 hours long in some cases. You know, I might listen to it over the span of a week.
Mhm.
But what I do find with him, with Lex, with Huberman, with some of the Ed Milet stuff, which Ed Milet's usually right around an hour, is that I will sometimes get in my car and I'll be like so excited to pick up where I left off. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I have 30-minute drive here and I can continue listening. Well, what does that say? It says that the content is good. If it's evoking that kind of an emotion and intrigue in me that I want to keep going back to it. I mean, you know, if you watch a good series on TV that's 12 episodes, you're not going to digest it all in one day in most cases. I mean, unless you're just got nothing else to do with your time, but that doesn't mean you're not going to watch it. The key is the content. And I think that it's good for us to just anchor back into that one more time, which is that you're a content creator and you have to be looking for great content. And the more content you create, the better you get at it. The more people start to really, digest and enjoy what they're hearing from you. One other thing I realized that I forgot about, I checked my notes, is what's your monthly budget for what's your spend on your Instagram account, just so people can get their head around that too.
Sure. So I coach with a guy named James Mesker. I spend about $2,500 a month with him, and my videography costs me $150 an hour. Typically, I shoot for like 2 to 3 hours every couple weeks. And then now I'm getting into the space of doing social media ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. And that can vary depending on like how many impressions I want people to see. But I'm probably spending about $50 to $100 a week on just ads. We started that a couple of weeks ago just to see what kind of pickup we can get in lead gen. Mm-hmm. But the bulk of it is the coaching, sitting with James and trying to figure out like, okay, what style are we going to do? So if you notice that my posts over the last couple months, the styling has been different. We're trying new things. I love doing the movie parodies where I'm taking a clip from a movie and then interjecting myself into the equation and tying it into mortgages. That's been a ton of fun. And
they're great. The one that I saw right before Austin was fantastic. Everybody was talking about it. Have you done more than one? Have you done more than one?
I have. So I did a Bruce Lee one.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Oh yeah. I'll send it to you afterwards. Please, but I did a Bruce Lee one. That was my first one. So that and the last one, I've done 2 so far. I've recorded since then 5 more. So be on the lookout.
Okay. I can't wait to see them.
Yeah, they're fun.
What are the common denominators of top originators in the mortgage business? They're well scripted. They have a system for marketing themselves that generates leads. They manage an effective database and they have strong referral partner relationships. The other common denominator of many great originators is that they have a business and life plan, a roadmap, a guide for them to achieve success, and they have an ally, a coach, who assists them in the successful implementation of that plan. Performance Experts Performance Accelerator private one-on-one 1-year coaching program is now accepting applications. This is my company, and these are my certified coaches that specialize in the mortgage business. Go to www.mortgagecoachingnow.com and click on Get a Coach, or go to the show notes and click on the link that's provided in this episode. Now let's get back to the show. It's astonishing to me as to how few originators really truly look at their business as a business. And what I mean by that is reinvesting some of their revenues back into their marketing. I mean, there are no great businesses that I can think of that don't do that. And a lot of originators fail to do that. And I love the fact that you are treating it like a business and you have a certain budget that you allocate on a monthly basis to growing your brand. And it's going to pay off, bro. Like, I mean, it already is, but it's going to really pay off. Trust me, I can't wait to get the phone call from you one day when it hits. rates drop or whatever happens, it's probably going to be a rate drop, but it might be some other factors. You're going to be like, oh shit, man, it tipped over and now it's really rolling. That'll be a fun day for you, and it'll be a fun day for me to see you going through that. So, I know that, recently you talked to my buddy Rich about investing in real estate. Tell us a little bit about why that's something you're so passionate about and what you're doing in that area and what you're
Yeah,
looking
man.
to do.
So I don't know, like I lost I think I shared the story with you. Like I lost literally everything during the last cycle in 2008, right? And the learning that I got from that is, man, I really want to set myself up financially and not have to go through that type of financial pain again. And real estate for me was the answer. I wanted to acquire a bunch of rental properties. I want to get into fixing and flipping. So I have a passion for that. I love watching HGTV shows. So, rather than just leave my money in my bank account, I use it to flip properties. And then every now and then, if it's a good long-term hold strategy, I'll buy the property and I'll hold it. I don't have a big portfolio like some of the guys from that we may know of, right? But I'm slowly building. But yeah, thanks for connecting me with Rich. He's I had no idea the guy flipped like over 300 properties. You and Rich together, you guys flipped a ton. Holy
Yeah.
cow!
I mean, look, the reality is I did nothing. I mean, it was just, I was an investor and had a little bit of knowledge as to what we were doing, but it was all him. And he became really smart at it. And I'm sure one of the things that he talked to you about was that, you want to look in every way possible to cut the expense associated with the rehabilitation and the resale of the property. So, developing a relationship with a real estate agent who will list your property for a much lower percentage because you're giving him or her a lot of volume. I mean, so, the same thing with an escrow company, the same thing with a title company. And certainly the biggest expense is the rehabilitation cost. So, having, like we did, a whole team of people that were employed by us that did all of that work that Rich oversaw along with our general, a guy named Mike. I mean, we were just able to, when you go to the auction steps and everybody's got their evaluation of what they'd be willing to pay for this property, and they're having to build into the equation, paying a 5% realtor commission to sell it and having to, pay an independent general contractor to rehab it and full pop in their escrow and title and all those types of things. They're not going to be able to bid as high for the property as we would be able to because we had such skinnier expenses, and fatter margins. So, yeah, I hope that I presume you guys talked about that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, we totally did. Rich talked about like how important it is to have a good team and to line people up, right, and to have good relationships. I mean, it's very similar to the mortgage industry, man. Like you just got to have good relationships. You got to have good relationships with real estate agents, with contractors, the same way you have them with title companies, escrow companies, referral partners. It's just flipping, like a flip property is our byproduct as opposed to a funded mortgage loan.
Yeah, that's really well said. And you also have to have kind of just like you have to have a perfect loan process, you have to have a perfect flip process, right? Like, I mean, there's a
Right.
sequential process that needs to happen efficiently. That unfortunately, when it comes to renters, also includes having a good real estate attorney in case you need to evict somebody, because that kind of stuff happens too. And, somebody to manage the properties because the pipe breaks and all that. Because if you're having to be the one who's constantly taking those phone calls on a Saturday evening when you're with your kids, it becomes very unattractive very quickly if you're getting sucked into the minutia of all that kind of stuff. So what is it? Is there anything that you would want to share relating to what your intentions and your game plan is going forward? Do you have a certain number of properties that you want to accumulate over a certain period of time? What are you looking for, etc.?
My goal is to flip consistently 24 properties a year, or I want to get to that point where I'm doing 24 a year. I'll probably do like we're on track right now for 8, so I need to add a few more to the pipeline. in order to even get that goal. But I'll probably finish out the year with like 12 flip properties. I have a partner in the deal. He's a buddy of mine. He's also a real estate agent. So he helps find a lot of these properties. He helps manage the renovation process. My involvement is very little other than that tile looks good, that flooring looks good, the numbers look right, let's go.
Are you guys taking out leverage?
No, not we haven't gotten to the point where we're leveraging it. Well, I take that back. So up until recently, I've been buying a lot of these properties just cash, right? The last deal that we did near Southwest Plaza, I used my line of credit. Like, all right, here we go. My rate was, I don't know, 7% or 8% at that point. And I didn't want to leverage my own money, and I use it. And like, oh shit, we made $85,000 net, right, on a $500,000 exit price, and I use my line of credit to buy it. Not even my own money.
How long was it on the books for before you were able to turn it?
4 months.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's really good, actually. So that it doesn't even matter if it was 10%. It wasn't on the books long enough to even have a big enough impact on the bottom line.
Yeah, I think we had like $6,000 of interest payment on that line of credit, and we're out. So, like, if you really do the math, like the ROI on your money, which is zero capital invested, it was pretty incredible.
That's awesome, man. Good luck with all of that. I'm excited for you, and yeah, for sure. When you wanna come on up, and the three of us can go grab some dinner, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it would be. Looking forward to that.
All right, so last question. I like to ask this question of just about everybody. Let's turn the clock back. I mean, one of the things that Rich said to me was, he was like, "How is that dude 45? Is that how old you are? Something like that, 45?"
Yeah.
Like, how is that? He's like, how is that dude 45 years old? He looks like he's 25.
That was funny.
So I'm going to ask you to turn the clock back 7 years and talk to your 18-year-old self. Okay. And I'm wondering what wisdom and advice you'd like to give to him if you had that opportunity to share something with him.
Oh man, 7 years, huh?
Well, let's go back to 18.
18, shit. Don't take life so seriously. And this one I learned from you, bro. You don't have to believe everything that you think. I can't even tell you like how many times a week, maybe a day is too much, but how many times a week I'm reminded of what you taught me. Like, hey, don't believe everything that you think. Let's do it. Especially with this whole social media thing. And I'll close with this, right? For me, it was so much more than just trying to gain followers. It was so much more than trying to get mortgage leads, trying to influence the community. It was also a challenge for me to lean into what I fear the most, which is putting myself out there and giving my voice a voice. And I struggled with that like my whole life. Like I've always been like the shy, timid guy, not wanting to raise my hand. And you, Julie, and Scott, and what I've learned from like your coaching program helped me break through that fear, right? I'm still trying to break through that fear. Like there's moments where I still get shy in front of a camera, and like you put me on stage right now, I will tremble, right?
Oh, I've seen it.
You have seen it, right?
Oh, yes, I have. Yeah.
But I will tell you this much. You put me on stage right now, I will tremble a little bit less than the last time. So thank you, bro, for everything that you've done.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, I wish I could take credit for that brilliant quote. I learned it at the University of Santa Monica when I went to school there. It's such a powerful quote. It speaks to, the importance of not buying into the narrative that's generally running behind the scenes in all of our brains. There's a lot of stories that we craft and weave for various reasons, including to protect ourselves, that are just false. If we can get some separation and some distance from the thinker and observe the thoughts, there's a lot of liberation available because you start to see the absurdity of some of the things that you're thinking about and how it's oftentimes just a real habitual thought pattern. And I think that it's just so important, Marc, to employ or deploy a healthy degree of skepticism and curiosity on a consistent basis as it relates to our thoughts. I was recently with one of my most revered teachers, who I hadn't seen her in probably about 3 years. She's a teacher of a specific kind of ecstatic dance called Five Rhythms, and it's a very, very amazing personal development practice. And she made a statement. She said it just so perfectly in her cadence. She said, "The mind, questionable at all times."
Mm.
And I was like, oh yeah, that
Wow.
really resonates. We often forget that the thoughts that we have are fairly consistently bullshit, actually. So that's a great place to leave, and that's some great wisdom for your 18-year-old. Thank you so much, man, for this time. It was awesome to spend time with you, bro. I know that you're going to get a lot of inquiries because you shared a lot of value that I think are huge takeaways for people that are looking to create content, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%, man. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you, and thanks for having me on your podcast. Continue doing what you're doing, bro. Fucking
Thanks.
awesome.
We'll be seeing and talking to each other real soon, as always, and hope that Kimberly and the kids are doing well. And good luck with this new endeavor with your real estate portfolio that you're working on.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you.
Okay, bro. Appreciate you too, man.